Generally, we think of authenticity as involving both owning one's personal experiences, such as thoughts, emotions, needs, and wants, and acting in accordance with those experiences. In this presentation, we will dig a little bit deeper into authenticity and leadership through the lens of Amy Newman of Cornell University, Bill George from Harvard Business School, and Mary Crossan, a professor at the Ivy Business School in Canada. As you can see on this screen is a famous Shakespearean quote. Shakespeare actually used this phrase in the play Hamlet. Polonius spoke these words as a token of advice to his son, Laertes, at the time of his departure to Paris. Now, the Elizabethan era audience of Shakespeare was well aware of the meaning of his words, though now in the modern age, words like self and true have a different connotation. In fact, this phrase has multiple meanings. The first meaning is that someone can better judge himself if he has done what he should or could have done. The second meaning is that one must be honest in his ways and relations. The third meaning is that one must always do the right thing. And finally, in keeping in view with the character of Polonius in the play, many scholars are of the opinion that true meant beneficial. Therefore, his advice to his son meant that he must think of his own benefit first. Now, Shakespeare is known for using irony and humor by masterfully presenting his characters, which speak high and act low. Polonius is one of those characters whom Shakespeare does not intend to present profoundly. Nevertheless, he lets him speak as a scholar. Today's critics believe that the gaudy speeches of Polonius in this play are actually Shakespeare's own maxims for living a good and noble life. There are three traditional notions of authenticity. First of all, it is best understood as a personal virtue. Next, it is constituted by three main elements: self-understanding, self-expression, and self-concern, which in particular is concern about what kind of person one is and what type of life one leads. Thirdly, it resembles the most traditional Aristotelian virtues insofar as it involves steering a middle course between two extremes, the golden mean between deceit and righteousness. Authenticity can be defined as a commitment to one's identity and values, which is as important for effective self-regulation. On this slide, you see a list of signs that you may be dealing with an inauthentic individual. They tend to be generally full of themselves. Inauthentic people like to show off. For example, they have high opinions of themselves, and they want to make sure everyone around them sees how great they are. They also tend to view others as being beneath them. They are often the peacock of their group, the one who is strutting and bragging and annoyed if others show them up. Sometimes they wrap themselves in a bogus facade and may even start to believe their own falsehoods. Unfortunately, under their carefully curated exterior, they may actually be struggling with low self-esteem. Using ego and vanity to cover up their inadequacies, they are reluctant to look too deeply within themselves. Inauthentic individuals are often manipulative and judgmental. They can be highly judgmental of others as a way of gaining control. An inauthentic person will constantly be trying to gain the upper hand or win the validation of others by manipulating those around him. But at the same time, they are unlikely to address any problems head-on. They look for ways to make themselves appear important. Their energy is often focused on building themselves up and tearing others down. This is why they are adept at being passive-aggressive and giving backhanded compliments. If they feel threatened or ignored, they will do whatever it takes to move the spotlight back on themselves or deflect any negative comments that they might encounter. Inauthentic people generally don't express their emotions freely and clearly. They don't know how to cope with their emotions, so they're often aggressive with others as a way to cover up their own feelings. Because they don't understand what it means to be true to themselves, they end up running away from who they really are. Often they are incapable of expressing how they truly feel because they have cut themselves off from deeper emotions, possibly because they fear what they might find there. It may be that they believe that in order to get things that they want, they have to be willing to lie, cheat, and bend the rules. This also might explain why inauthentic or fake people are often two-faced, showing friends one side of themselves, then talking about them behind their backs. But seldom would they say the truth to a friend's face, instead preferring to maintain the appearance of being nice to everyone. Inauthentic people aren't interested in learning from their mistakes. They are focused on making themselves look good. They aren't worried about the actual quality of their character or trying to better themselves or become more trustworthy. They're also liable to hold grudges against others, because forgiveness would mean having the humility to see that no one is perfect, and in their mind, they are perfect and everyone else falls short. That's why inauthentic people aren't able to learn from their own mistakes. They have a hard time owning up to any failures or missteps. They will blame others, make excuses. It will always be someone else's fault. They really never truly learn important lessons associated with making mistakes, and this course will hold them back from true success. Inauthentic people also have unrealistic perceptions. This is one of the biggest reasons why they are so toxic. They are often wrapped up in materialism because in their world, the stuff that fills their life is a true reflection of how successful they are. They are usually far more interested in collecting things they can brag about than working to develop lasting, meaningful relationships. Having a deep connection or friendships with others would require that they also be in touch with their thoughts and feelings. Because they keep things mostly at the surface level, they also have a very limited view of the world. Their focus is on money and wealth. They focus on what others can do for them because they see things through this distorted lens. They make decisions and build their life based on flawed perceptions. Inauthentic people are attention getters and people pleasers. They have a need to make everyone like them, or at the very least notice them. They cannot stand to be ignored, willing to do and say almost anything in pursuit of approval and confirmation or affection from others. They may come off as needy at times and may have the annoying habit of constantly changing or retroactively tweaking what they said for fear that someone will take what they said the wrong way. Yet any kindness or hospitality that they show in others is an act and is likely designed to manipulate others in a broader scheme that they believe will give them a leg up in some way. Inauthentic people don't understand the point of selfless benevolence or philanthropy. Inauthentic people sometimes have a hostile sense of humor. Under that fake smile, an inauthentic person could be storing up resentment and anger at those around him. They tend to see the world through a cynical lens because they don't trust anyone. Their default button is set to sarcasm, and they use mockery as a way of bolstering their self-esteem. They often find it easier to put others down with a harsh quip or a sarcastic wisecrack rather than employ self-deprecating humor. This hostile sense of humor may make them seem clever or shrewd, but in reality it's masking their insecurity and anxiety. The zingers and one-liners thrown by an inauthentic person are really a diversion. They don't want anyone to look closely at their own flaws. Inauthentic individuals lack consistency. One of the hallmarks of an inauthentic person is a lack of core values and the inability to stay on track and remain focused. They are often bouncing from one thing to the next, never really giving their all to any one project, spreading themselves too thin by trying to do everything and be everywhere. They tend to miss deadlines and make excuses or blame others, but it really comes down to a lack of consistency on their part. And all of this inconsistency leaves a big mess in their wake because they really don't know what they stand for. They are constantly letting themselves get bogged down in minutiae as they try to micromanage everything without recognizing larger goals. Inauthentic people insulate themselves in their own clique. Inauthentic people often take advantage of a situation through a mob mentality. They look for ways of influencing their peers through the use of emotion rather than logic or intellectual rationales. They are happy to whip others into a fury over something, especially if it somehow benefits them. They are likely to try to maneuver themselves into a position of greater authority or control. These fake people often insulate themselves with cliques that often put social pressure on others to conform to their ideas, which serves to reinforce their preconceived notions. This is because inauthentic people aren't open-minded and don't want others to question their motives or their ideals. I would ask you to pause here, reflect on what we've discussed so far, and in your journal or your notebook for our next class meeting, answer the questions on the slide. Have you known someone that you would consider inauthentic or fake? Jot down how you would describe that person's behavior. Talk about how you feel about that person. I would ask you to pause here, reflect on what we've discussed so far, and in your journal or your notebook for our next class meeting, answer the questions on the slide. Have you known someone that you would consider inauthentic or fake? Jot down how you would describe that person's behavior. Talk about how you feel about that person. In his book, Discover Your True North, thought leader Bill George gave us an explanation of being an authentic leader. He said, and I quote, "Being an authentic leader is being who you are, being the genuine person. I think you have to be true to what you believe in every day." Now, in the academic literature, authenticity is defined as the unobstructed operation of one's true or core self in daily enterprise. Social psychologists Michael Kernis and Brian Goldman actually divide the concept of authenticity into 4 essential components: an awareness and knowledge of yourself, unbiased and objective processing, acting consistently with who you are, being genuine and not fake in relationships with others. Authentic living is correlated with relationship satisfaction, self-esteem, and happiness. While people who feel inauthentic, for example, find that their personality varies depending on their role, and they often report more depression and anxiety. Research shows great value in living an authentic life. In psychology, for instance, authenticity is considered to be essential to well-being. To be authentic, we recognize we are not perfect. We present ourselves to the others, warts and all. People who are authentic are willing to be vulnerable. They know their weaknesses and are open about them. They ask for and receive the help they need. But being authentic does not mean we don't change. Authentic people take responsibility for themselves and their choices over time. People who value authenticity recognize that they are not the same people they were yesterday or will be tomorrow. They strive consistently to be better over time. Becoming more authentic may involve changing old negative images of ourselves. We need to explore who we used to be and look towards who we want to become. Now, let's be clear that being authentic does not mean we are rigid or inflexible, or that we are always correct. It's important to remember that we can be true to ourselves, and we do have to live among others. Critics suggest that authenticity as a leadership virtue encourages people to be rigid. Some even suggest that leaders are not expected to be authentic, just adapting to different situations. More recent definitions of authenticity have added the concept of flexibility, particularly for those experiencing new and more responsibilities. New roles may stretch us in many ways that actually make us feel fake, but actually the discomfort may be due to the newness of the role. As leaders take on more responsibilities, they tend to experiment with new approaches and communication styles. This adaptation does not mean the new leader isn't being real, but simply trying to figure out what works in a situation that may be outside his or her comfort zone. New actions and new roles challenge us and change us, and they change how we interact with others. Authenticity is not fixed, because as people we are not fixed. We grow and evolve over time. It is a lifelong journey. We can never be 100% authentic. We are complicated. We are different at home and at work, and not exactly the same everywhere we go. Different contexts may require different parts of who you are. For example, you might be an individual contributor without any others reporting to you, but you may hold significant influence that suggests you have authority. Or in a different context, you may be a school leader who takes a back seat in a situation and allows others to lead. In either situation, you are being true to yourself, and you're being an adaptable leader. Critics say that authentic leaders run the risk of thinking they are always right, so we need to be careful not to confuse authenticity with being an authority, particularly in the areas of morality and moral leadership. People are not inherently moral or immoral, and being authentic does not mean necessarily that you are moral. You can be 100% authentic and true to yourself, and also be dead wrong. It might be helpful to define authenticity in a way that includes what is good for others. To be authentic, we need clarity about our core values, goals, emotions, and identity. The measure on this slide was developed by a team of psychologists to assess 3 components of authenticity. They talk about authentic living, which involves being true to oneself in most situations and living in accordance with one's values and beliefs. They talk about accepting external influence, which is the extent to which one accepts the influence of other people and the belief that one has to conform to the expectations of others. They also reference self-alienation, which refers to the inevitable mismatch between conscious awareness and the actual experience or the true self. I would ask you to pause here and take a few moments to privately assess yourself on the 12 statements on this page. In your journal or notebook, please rate each item on a scale from 1 to 7. 1 being it does not describe me at all, and 7 meaning it describes me very well. When you're finished, you will add items 1, 8, 9, and 11 to give you a score on your authentic living. Items 3, 4, 5, and 6 will give you a score on accepting external influence. Items 2, 7, 10, and 12 will give you a score on self-alienation. Responses to this self-assessment will give you a snapshot of where you are today and present opportunities for further development as you move into leadership roles. This exercise is simply designed to have you consider where you are at this point in time and to consider ways to become more authentic. To be authentic, we need clarity about our core values, goals, emotions, and identity. The measure on this slide was developed by a team of psychologists to assess 3 components of authenticity. They talk about authentic living, which involves being true to oneself in most situations and living in accordance with one's values and beliefs. They talk about accepting external influence, which is the extent to which one accepts the influence of other people and the belief that one has to conform to the expectations of others. They also reference self-alienation, which refers to the inevitable mismatch between conscious awareness and the actual experience or the true self. I would ask you to pause here and take a few moments to privately assess yourself on the 12 statements on this page. In your journal or notebook, please rate each item on a scale from 1 to 7. 1 being it does not describe me at all, and 7 meaning it describes me very well. When you're finished, you will add items 1, 8, 9, and 11 to give you a score on your authentic living. Items 3, 4, 5, and 6 will give you a score on accepting external influence. Items 2, 7, 10, and 12 will give you a score on self-alienation. Responses to this self-assessment will give you a snapshot of where you are today and present opportunities for further development as you move into leadership roles. This exercise is simply designed to have you consider where you are at this point in time and to consider ways to become more authentic. Leaders who relate to their teams and inspire effective action are critically important to success. According to a study in Leadership and Organizational Development Journal, employees' perceptions of authentic leadership serves as the strongest predictor of job satisfaction and can have a positive impact on work-related attitudes and happiness. In addition, further research outlined in the Harvard Business Review reveals that the majority of employees believe that authenticity in the workplace leads to several benefits, including better relationships with colleagues, higher levels of trust, greater productivity, and a more positive working environment. For professionals seeking to advance their careers and make a lasting impact on their school communities, investing time and effort into becoming an authentic leader can be immensely valuable. But what really characterizes authentic leadership, and why is it a worthy pursuit? On this slide, there are 5 traits of authentic leaders offered by Harvard Business School professor Nancy Cohen. First, she says they are committed to bettering themselves. To become more effective at motivating and guiding others, authentic leaders need to first focus on bettering themselves. Authentic leaders begin with the will and commitment to work on themselves. They're not trying to be perfect, but rather they say day by day, week by week, I'm going to work on myself. And this commitment made with oneself is an important starting characteristic. Next, they cultivate self-awareness. A keen sense of self-awareness is one of the most important traits a leader can possess. According to Dr. Cohen, cultivating this foundational component of emotional intelligence involves asking yourself questions such as, what am I experiencing? What are my strengths? How am I showing up in the world? Next, Cohen says these leaders are disciplined. Being an authentic leader requires more than just building self-awareness. You need to put it into practice too. And that requires discipline. Make it a point to check in with yourself as you complete daily tasks, such as delivering feedback and communicating with others, to ensure you're bringing self-awareness to the role. With a stronger sense of your motivations and limitations, you can identify your personal leadership style and chart a personal professional development plan that capitalizes on your strengths and rectifies your weaknesses. Authentic leaders are also mission-driven. They have a deep and abiding commitment to a mission, and it's integral to both authentic leadership and success. According to a recent HBR survey, 89% of executives said that a sense of collective purpose drives employee engagement, and 84% said it leads to greater success in transformational efforts. So as you progress through different stages of your leadership trajectory, consider what issues and challenges motivate you to take action and empower others to do the same. As you know, identifying your mission can take time, but it's critically worth the pursuit. Finally, authentic leaders inspire faith. Gaining the trust of your team and influencing them to believe in and mobilize around a mission is the key tenet of effective leadership. The last but by no means least characteristic of authentic leadership is the willingness to take a leap of faith when things are difficult. To help your followers believe the mission is worthy of pushing forward even in the face of unexpected hurdles, and that the vast future ahead of them is worth fighting for, being inspired by, and identifying with. Thought leader Amy Newman posits that being authentic at work has positive outcomes not only for the individual but for the entire community. When leaders bring their whole selves to work and encourage others to do the same, an inclusive working environment can unfold. There are positive outcomes. For instance, leaders who remain true to the self in their behavior and are open and non-defensive in their interactions with others will be perceived as walking the talk, delivering on promises, and aligning words with deeds. Authentic leadership correlates to followers' positive feelings, group trust, and identification with the leader. When people share more of who they are, they report greater job satisfaction, a stronger sense of community, lower job stress, and higher levels of engagement. In fact, one field study revealed that when new members were oriented into a new work environment, focusing on personal identities and what makes people unique, instead of emphasizing goals and conformity, it resulted in better retention rates and quality of work. Something to think about in terms of onboarding and supporting new staff members. In terms of our whole selves, while bringing our whole selves to work may take time. In one study, employees who said they were authentic reported that it took anywhere from a few months to a year to be able to share their true selves at work. Sometimes people just need to feel comfortable and prove themselves and their ability in the job first. Indra Nooyi, the PepsiCo chair and CEO, noted, quote, "The only way we will hold on to the best and the brightest is to grasp them emotionally. No one may feel excluded. It is our job to draw out the best in everyone. That means employees must be able to immerse their whole selves in a work environment in which they can develop their careers, families, and truly believe they are cared for." Now, in terms of fitting in, all of that being said, being authentic in the workplace may be easier said than done. We each face a delicate and difficult balance between authentic and fitting in. Leaders have to decide for themselves whether an organization is the right place for them, and even sometimes whether the people in the organization are in the right place. Social psychologist Mark Snyder argues that high self-monitoring people respond to social cues and context, adjusting how they behave to impress others. Low self-monitoring individuals, on the other hand, are less willing to adapt and tend to stick with their perceptions of themselves. Now, in the extremes, high self-monitoring people may seem as inauthentic chameleons, while low self-monitoring individuals could also appear to be stubborn or socially awkward. I'm thinking that this is perhaps a false dichotomy. The question may really be not whether we adapt or we don't adapt, but rather how skillfully we adapt in different roles and contexts without losing ourselves in the process. Finally, to look at inclusion. To be ourselves and to have the opportunity to lead and do our best work, we need to be in a place where we belong, where we feel included. The key to an inclusive group is being able to share openly what we find offensive or questionable about others without challenging their right to be in the group. Dr. Brene Brown asked 8th graders, "What's the difference between fitting in and belonging?" Their answers were particularly insightful. One 8th grader said, "Belonging is being somewhere where you want to be and they want you. Fitting in is being somewhere where you really want to be, but they don't care one way or another." Another 8th grader said it even more succinctly, "I get to be me if I belong. I have to be like you if I have to fit in." When we get to know each other, we work better together. People are drawn to real people. So how do you become an authentic leader? Well, the answer isn't the same for everyone. It involves your own strengths and weaknesses, challenges, and goals. I would invite you to assess yourself with the True North mirror and see your journey toward authentic leadership reflected back to you in this survey. When you do this, you'll see how you measure up against 5 key pillars of authentic leadership, and you'll have a chance to choose an area to focus on. This assessment should take you approximately 10-12 minutes to complete. There are a total of 25 questions, divided into 5 different sections. Just simply think about each question carefully and answer them as honestly as you can to yield authentic results. Now that you've looked at your mirror scores, take some time now to jot down your thoughts about the following questions. What people, events, and/or experiences have had the greatest impact on you in your life? In which experiences did you find the greatest inspiration and passion for leadership? Have you been able to frame or reframe failures or disappointments into learning experiences? Please reflect on your scores on self-awareness, values, integrated life, support team, and sweet spot, and jot down your goals as you move into leadership roles. Becoming an authentic leader requires introspection, feedback, support, self-compassion, and self-acceptance. It also requires rigor, commitment, and diligence. And interestingly, introverts seem to find this process easier than extroverts do. When people work alongside a truly authentic leader, they'll often give their whole hearts and minds to the cause. In these situations, a spirit of teamwork and loyalty can spread throughout an organization, resulting in high morale and producing extraordinary results. Basically, authentic leaders inspire trust in their teams. They always act with strong self-discipline. For each task, they will concentrate on the important aspects while always being sensitive to the needs of others, but they don't lose focus or professionalism. To inspire others, they set an example and they act with iron discipline. This is a condition and a basis for good leadership. And as Brené Brown says, wholehearted people are willing to let go of who they should be in order to be who they are.